Okay, so this is how we create small group leaders. So, like one of the big things with youth ministry and youth programs is how can you basically take youth and develop them and cultivate them so that they become leaders, not only the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of today, where they can actively contribute and buy in to their communities and the program and the ministry. So we're in our ministry, welcome to Southside Blooms. We're based out of here in the Southside Chicago Inglewood neighborhood. The first big reason why, or way you can create youth and developing the leaders, is creating a space for thriving. So you actually spend a lot of time running the program here in this space, as well as do a lot of the interior designing. So what are some of your thoughts on creating a space for youth to thrive?
Yeah, so a couple things when it came to designing the space. First, we were just trying to save money. We were just really concerned about costs. Obviously, if you know our story, we started with nothing. We were just bootstrapping it for so many years. And our main priority was to get money into the hands of youth. But when we started to sort of design the space, we weren't even going to replace the floor, but they were tile was bad. And we just kind of felt like God was impressing upon us to spare no expense here. And it didn't make sense because we didn't have a lot of money. We're not really fancy people. We knew that this wasn't necessarily going to be a shop open to the public. It was going to be a fulfillment center. So didn't quite understand that, but we obeyed and we spent money on a new floor. We made sure everything was painted. We spent a lot of money on these decals, much to Quillen's chagrin. I had to convince him about that. But it was really
Are decals still in style? I don't know. I kind of feel like
it might be a bygone era. It went quick.
It's like wallpaper.
I still like them, but I'm 43, so. But the main result, I think, of it was a feeling of when you're in sort of a community where you already see a lot of dilapidated, housing and trash and empty lots, to come in and work in a space that feels like there were a lot of resources put in here. We can tell that really makes a difference. And it does, I feel help our youth to, take their work to a higher level. Hey, I belong here, I work here. This is a beautiful space. I mean, it's definitely worn and it's full of stuff now, but there's just a different mindset that you get into when you feel wow, I belong to a high-end flower shop. I even had somebody come by, a worker who was from a different neighborhood, come by and said, oh, this looks like something that should be on the north side, not in Inglewood, which, I took offense to. But just basically what it told me was kind of people expect not great things here. And we really wanted to bring youth into something that felt that they belonged somewhere really beautiful, somewhere, really, high end, and that they could create beautiful things too.
So basically the first thing that you're really kind of emphasizing is excellence in the physical space, right? So it's a space where not only it's beautiful, but it's a space where youth can feel safe, where youth can feel they can be themselves a little bit, and you sound like you put a lot of thought into that. I mean, that's very key because, I think like here, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Southside Chicago, it's a high crime neighborhood, a lot of violence, a lot of our youth come from high trauma background. So being able to have a safe space, right? A safe space where our youth could feel psychologically, secure was actually a pretty big deal, right? Because you don't have that. That's just kind of the bare minimum, right? So it's having a nice physical space that is safe. You know what? I didn't really appreciate safety until I came down here. Grew up in Madison, where things were very nice. I didn't have to really worry about a lot of the things that we deal with down here. But yeah, definitely the first big checkbox was making sure it's a safe, secure, beautiful space for you to thrive.
Well, can I just add, that's also why we kind of chose the fulfillment center route. We keep the door locked. Anybody can shop at southsideblooms.com. Even if you live down the street, it gets delivered to you just like anywhere else. So we're not limiting selling flowers to our neighbors. It just that felt like they could come in here. I mean, we had youth come running in after school, having been chased by somebody who had a gun. It's just the reality of sort of what we're around. So it felt like that was part of our calculation was, okay, there's youth that wanted even all the windows covered, which we didn't do that because we're we still want the community to see what's going on. And we get a lot of community buy-in just from people who walk beside the shop.
You're done? You guys sweep up everything?
Whatever environment you're in, the youth need to feel safe. So just kind of
depending
on what's going on,
around you,
create the space where it's beautiful, people can feel settled in a space that is beautiful and safe.
And I think another point on the side, the kids were they just got done sweeping. Our kids are involved in this as well, so they get they have jobs here as well. I think another good big point on that is belonging kind of comes before kids take ownership, right? So kids need to feel like they belong in that space. So if you look at our youth, like it's a lot of their peers are here. It's a space that's kind of curated for them. One of the things why we chose flowers is because a lot of our youth are inherently artistic. They like design, and that's something that they felt like they could train them in and that they could be confident in. So really taking the time, because every youth demographic is different, obviously, but really taking the time to understand, like, okay, like what really resonates with your youth group, right? And really being intentional about trying to curate the space and curate the program. Because in the early years, we looked at everything from, growing food to, doing 3D printing, doing coding. But the thing that really captivated their imagination was flowers. And that's one of the reasons why we went all in on flowers. So, and another a point that I like to talk about is in order to create a thriving space, you need to be very intentional about creating opportunities for youth to be contributors, not just consumers. I feel like with a lot of youth programs and youth ministries, it's very easy for the thing, you just have to entertain them, right? It'd be like, okay, well, this is like the TikTok generation, and they'll only be engaged if the youth pastor, the youth leader can be cool and hip and talk like he's 16 years old. And that's not the case. We carry ourselves like this. We're obviously family, husband and wife, but father and mother, to our kids, and we're a little bit older than our youth, and it's worked out fine, right? Because at the end of the day, they're looking for authenticity.
We did have managers before that were not as young as the youth, but in their mid-20s, and they fell into that trap of kind of wanting to be accepted, and we had to let one go because he was joking inappropriately with the youth while they were making bouquets.
Well, he made a rap song that was talking about their love life.
Innuendos.
Right.
Anyway, we don't need to get into that.
He got terminated.
But yeah, obviously we couldn't have that. But all that to say, I could tell that they didn't respect him. And he was trying so hard to be accepted and liked, thinking that would be a best way to lead them. And really, they had no respect for him. They had respect for us, who could fire them too. But they also saw that we were trying to do what was best for them. And that's one of the same youth that was in that group. When we saw he had new shoes, we asked him, how'd you get those? And he said, you gave them to me, meaning he was able to buy them with his money from his job here. So respect is more important than being liked, right? So in the end of the day, I think youth are looking for someone they can respect, they can show them the way, they can be a good mentor, a good example. And that's really going to take you a lot further than just being like the new cool thing, on the block.
Well, and even kind of building off that point too, when youth do begin to buy into that space, I think a general rule of thumb for people to keep in mind is people protect spaces that they're invested in, right? So kind of looking at our situation in our youth program, we knew that there's a few needs that need to be met. One, they needed to be in a safe space that they feel like they could call their own. Two, a big need was obviously economic. A lot of our kids come from poor backgrounds. So being able to provide real jobs that had meaning and that kind of thing. Three, a lot of our youth need to be affirmed that they have something valuable to offer to our community, to our city. There's a lot of negative stereotypes, obviously, of the Southside Chicago, particularly Black youth. So being able to be in a place where it could be affirmed that you have value and that you do have something that people need really help our youth to really buy in and be invested in this. As a result, these days, they protect it, right? Southside Blooms is the home to many of our youth, and it's way more than just another job, right? And it's because we've been so intentional in curating a space where they could thrive.
Well, and we've even had the youth that have quit or we had to let go that have come around later, kind of seeing if there was an opportunity to come back, wanting another chance. And to us, that speaks volumes that they respected in a way why we let them go, because they saw that we were holding them to a high standard. So I think the verse in Timothy that's famous where it says, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example. I mean, we have to hold kids to that standard, or else we aren't believing that verse, right? So if you lower standards for young people, you're disrespecting them. You're basically saying, oh, you can't do that. You can't achieve. I have to lower this for you. And that's going to give you the opposite result. And that was really important for us here to hold a really high standard. So not everyone can make it. We have to let kids go. But the kids who stay rise to that standard, and, you know, they feel respected because they see that we believe that, and we give everybody a chance. Everyone has a chance. We have a low bar when it comes to hiring people. We're just giving you a chance to prove that you can operate at this high level and that you can achieve, and it's respecting them at the end of the day.
Yep. And I think like on that point, I think it's good to remember that excellence is the highest form of ministry. Excellence is the highest form of evangelism. You know, we're in a neighborhood that's pretty rough. There's a lot of blight, a lot of vacant lots, a lot of trash. And a big reason why this ministry stands out is because we do things in excellence. You know, you look around here, everything's being done in excellence, and we maintain that high bar. So, yes, so creating an environment that is thriving is definitely the first big point that we want to stress in terms of how to grow and build young leaders.